All right. So it is 12:02. I think it's probably a good time to start, and we'll have a couple people kind of filtering in. Um, so welcome everyone to our second webinar in our Lunch and Learn series. This series will be running every other Wednesday from 2 weeks ago until the end of May, and we hope it's going to help everyone kind of get excited for butterflying this season and also pick up some new tips and tricks that'll help you better understand butterflies. Today, I'm excited to introduce Amber Jones, who is VCE's staff biologist, and today she's going to be telling us about Vermont's caterpillars and some of their host plants. Now, Amber joined VCE back in 2023 as part of the Upper Valley Tick Project, so she's always kind of been on the entomology side. And she came to us after completing a degree in resource ecology from UVM. She's super passionate about all things insects, including last year she discovered a new to Vermont native bee species called the lunate longhorn cuckoo bee.
Woohoo.
And in addition to the Second Vermont Butterfly Atlas, Amber's
That's
also
here.
works on a number of other projects, including the native plant ecotype experiment, which is Desiree's project looking at, you might also know it from the Adopt a Plant project if you've got some plants from that. Pollinators interacting with plants projects, and also wild bees on farms, which is a new project we're very excited about. So before we jump in, I want to just review some good Zoom practices. So like I said, Amber will be taking questions at the end of her talk, but I'll be monitoring the chat throughout. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. I also want to remind everyone we're going to keep our audio off during the presentation, but at the end, you'll have a chance to unmute and ask Amber any questions you have. You're welcome to keep your videos on or leave them off throughout the presentation. Do note that this webinar is being recorded, so if you do have your video on, just be mindful of whatever it's showing. With that, Amber, if you would like to share your screen, we'll get started.
All right, let's see. Okay, can you see that, Dana?
Yep, looks good.
Great. All right, great. Thank you everybody for joining us today. This is one of my favorite topics, are caterpillars. So this is kind of going to be fun for me. I hope it's fun for you all too. Let me just move out of here. Okay. All right. So before we start, just a little bit about VCE. I'm sure most everybody here is familiar with us, but if you are not, we are not just about butterflies. We're a biodiversity and conservation science organization based in White River Junction, Vermont. Our research ranges from vernal pools to pollinators, from mountain songbirds at the top of Mount Mansfield all the way to their wintering grounds in the Caribbean. And we're supported by people like you, whether you volunteer your time, make a monetary donation, attend events, or just help spread the word about us. You're an integral part of our research and our educational outreach programs like the webinar today. So thank you all very much for being here. We can get this to advance. There we go. And then the Second Butterfly Atlas, I'm sure a lot of you here are already familiar with this, but if you are not, this is an atlas that the first one was done about 20 years ago, and we are now in the second atlas. We are 4 years into our 5-year survey efforts across the state. If this is something you're interested in learning about or interested in contributing in or contributing to, there will be links linking you to some resources for that at some point in the webinar, definitely at the end, if not before. And then just a few things I wanted to talk about before we actually got into the slides are state conservation status rankings. You're going to see these in some of the slides. Next to the species, you'll see a red letter S with a number next to it. And this is kind of just what they mean. So state of Vermont is actually one of the few states to rank insects for conservation need. We rank bees and butterflies, and pretty much nothing else in the state. But you'll see that there's a range of S1 through S5. Anything on the slides here that don't have an S ranking on them is considered an S5 or S4 species, which would be secure or apparently secure. I've marked, I hope, all the species that fall from S3 through S1, which is our vulnerable, imperiled, and critically imperiled species. Those species are at higher risk of extirpation or locally extinct from the state. So just something to keep in mind while we're going through the slides. As of the last Butterfly Atlas 20 years ago, approximately 23% of Vermont butterflies ranked S3 or lower. So definitely an important subject. And then the importance of caterpillars. So we can't talk about caterpillars and how cool they are without talking about how important they are. 96% of our terrestrial birds feed their young insects, and the majority of those insects are caterpillars. Research done by Desiree Narango and Doug Tallamy shows that it takes between 6,000 and 9,000 caterpillars to raise one clutch of birds. That's an incredible amount of caterpillars. So if you have birds nesting in your yard, you should feel really special because that means you're providing them with enough food to raise their young. Caterpillars are high on proteins, fats, and carotenoids. These are all the things that help grow baby birds very quickly. And they're also efficient energy conversion package, I guess you could say. They eat the plant matter that other animals can't eat. They convert it into energy and they pass it up the food chain to things like birds and spiders and wasps. And not only that, but they are just fun and easy to watch. They can't fly away or get away easily. So when you find one, you can just kind of sit there and see what they're doing. So some tips on finding caterpillars. You may or may not know specifically what you're looking for. If you do, think about the species. Get to know the species that you want to find. Find out what kind of host plants they use. When are these host plants around? You want to think about the seasonality and the life cycle of these butterflies. So when are they a caterpillar? When are they an adult? And think about the time of day. So when you're out looking for caterpillars, most caterpillars come out and eat at night and spend much of the day hiding. And sometimes that's in the foliage, sometimes that's back against the stems or the tree. And sometimes that can even be back like near the ground. They'll do anything to not get eaten. So other tips for finding caterpillars. So whether you know what you're looking for or not, say you just want to go out and find something, you can go find a plant and then follow some of these tips. So if you follow stems and branches of these plants, a lot of times the caterpillars are really good at blending in. They may look just like a stem or a branch. Their coloration may make them blend in. So this first picture here is a couple American ladies on some Pearly Everlasting. They're actually surprisingly hard to see sometimes when you're not up close. So following those main stems and branches, you can see that I found some right under some flower buds. The middle picture here, the cabbage white, gardener's bane of gardener's existence. So if you are familiar with cabbage whites, they blend in really well to your plants. You can find them on top of or under the leaves. And a lot of times the first thing that gives them away is their frass, caterpillar poop, or seeing the leaves are eaten down to nothing. So in this last picture here, you can see some holes where a caterpillar's eaten. So look for eaten leaves. Look for caterpillar frass. A lot of times that is one of your first indicators, as in like with tomato hornworms, that there's a caterpillar there. And also look for molts. So caterpillars go through, they have 5 different instars. And instar just basically means that they molt out of their old skin and grow bigger. So if you find some molts, some old skins on your plants, then you most likely have a caterpillar around. Also looking for rolled or folded leaves. So a lot of caterpillars will sew up a little pocket in the leaves excuse me, of plants so that they can hide and eat throughout the day without being seen. So if you see something like that, you can just kind of peel it apart carefully and take a look inside. This one here is a wild indigo skipper. And the the middle picture here is if you follow your leaf edges and veins, a lot of caterpillars have evolved to look really similar to the plant they're on. So a lot of times you'll find caterpillars on the leaf edge that have like a jagged back that kind of matches the leaf edge. Here we have one on the very end of a leaf vein. It's eaten a lot of the leaf around it. It's out towards the edge. I believe this species, and I'll have to double check. They make a little, they add a little bit of their frass to that to make the end come out a little longer. But so follow those leaf veins and edges, and you might find a little caterpillar. And then finally, look in the flowers. A lot of times these guys will eat flower buds. They'll eat the flowers themselves, and flowers are just a really good place to hide and camouflage themselves. So always check in the flowers, and you might find some critters hiding in there as well. And so let's start talking about some of the herbaceous host plants. And most of the plants that I have in this slideshow are ones that you can find in your yard or in your community. Most of these are easily available through native seed companies or native plant nurseries. And I tried to choose as many of these plants that would kind of give you the most caterpillars for your buck, kind of, so to speak. So just remember when we're talking about the caterpillars, this is just a really tiny sample of host plants. I have resources that Dana will either link in the chat or send out via email, I'm not sure, so that you can look further into these resources after the webinar. And I also want to mention before we go any further that while you're looking for caterpillars, you're probably going to find more moth caterpillars than butterflies. There are many species of moths, about 12,000 species of moths in the US compared to 750 species of butterflies. And they're equally as important, if not more so, as pollinators and food for birds and bats and other insects. So, okay. So our first host plant are the violets. There's over 15 native species to Vermont and New Hampshire. They grow in a variety of habitats. They make really great lawn plants. I once saw somebody when I was doing field work, their entire yard was violets, and it was just incredible. So make a great understory plant, great replacement for grass. They bloom through the spring and the summer, and they are a awesome host plant for our fritillaries. So violets will host every single species of fritillary in the state of Vermont. The greater fritillaries, which are the Atlantis, the Aphrodite, and the Great Spangled, are violet obligates, meaning they can only eat violets, and that's it. Some of the other fritillaries, like the meadow and the silver bordered variegated, they have few other options for host plants, but again, violets will host all of them. So I would encourage you to plant or encourage the existing violets in your yard. And something neat that the fritillaries do, you would think when you're looking at plants, you would find caterpillar eggs, but in fact, adult fritillaries she sprinkles her eggs around the plants, not on them. And when the caterpillars hatch, rather than going to eat, they immediately burrow into the ground. They enter diapause, which is like an insect hibernation, and they spend the winter just kind of asleep. In the spring, when the violets start to emerge, so do the caterpillars, and they begin to eat. So if you're looking for fritillary caterpillars, look for them in the spring when your violets start coming up. Next is the little blue stem. So this is a grass. This is a seemingly like, you don't think of grasses when you think of host plants. You always think of flowers. This is a powerhouse for butterflies. This hosts about 14 different species of butterflies, including 9 species of skippers. It can be found in grasslands, meadows, woodlands. It makes a beautiful bronze color in the fall. It's very hard to find in the wild in Vermont, but it is available through native nurseries and native seed companies. And little blue stem hosts, these are just some of the butterfly species. You'll see the dusted skipper down there with the asterisk and the red S1. So that's a critically imperiled species. I believe there's one known population of them down towards Brattleboro, where there's a bunch of little blue stem, I think near the highway. And so that's just kind of shows you that it's if there's not a lot of the grasses around the state, these populations are going to stick to these small areas. So plant some little blue stem. Next host plants are our legumes. So this is a big family of plants. I just listed a few here. Vetch, which is typically not native, but you can find it all over the roadsides in your yard, things like that. They will host butterflies like the blues. Tick trefoils, this picture here is Desmodium canadensis. Wild indigo, there's two species of wild indigo. We have one species, it's Tinctoria, it's the yellow, that is native to Vermont, but it's considered, let's just say it may not even be here anymore in the wild. So it's not encouraged to plant that species. A lot of botanists, it's kind of a controversial issue as to whether you should bring in ecotypes from other areas or not. So I'm not going to encourage you to plant it, but if you find it, protect it. Same with the wild lupin. So our native wild lupin is considered endangered in Vermont. So again, not encouraging anybody to plant it, but if you do find it, definitely protect that. An American hog peanut, which is kind of a really interesting little viney looking plant. You can find it in the woods. I have some across the street from my house. I never really thought to look for caterpillars on it, so now I will. And here is some of the caterpillars that legumes host. Again, down at the bottom, you're going to see the gray hair streak with the S2, S3 ranking. So that's the imperiled to vulnerable ranking right there. In the pictures, the gray hair streak on the very top left, that is on Desmodium canadensis or showy tick trefoil. There's also an eastern tail blue on the same plant. Down below where the ants are, that's a silvery blue, that's on vetch. And so if you want to find caterpillars on vetch, just follow the ants because they will take you right to it. They tickle the caterpillar provides this little sugary treat. And so it's kind of this mutual relationship where the ants let the caterpillar do its thing. The ants protect the caterpillar because the caterpillar is giving them some nice sweet treats when they want it, and kind of works for everybody. And then the last picture is the wild indigo dusky wing. This guy just makes his little nest in the leaf by sewing it shut. So if you see folded leaves on your wild indigo, just take a peek in there and see who you have. And our next host plant, asters. So asters is, this is a Symphyiotrichum. I can never pronounce it. This is the American asters. There's about 15 species native to Vermont and New Hampshire. They bloom in the late summer and fall. And not only are they a great caterpillar plant, but they also support late season pollinators. And they host several butterflies, a couple of the crescents and a couple of the checker spots. You'll see silvery checker spot, S1 species, so critically imperiled. Also, the checker spots you'll notice is there's a lot of caterpillars in these pictures on one plant, and these caterpillars, the butterfly lays a lot of eggs in one spot, so you'll find like a whole nest of these guys. That might be one of your first tips, is that while the plant is decimated and there's a bunch of like webby weird stuff all over it, that's your caterpillars. And then here's just a few more I wanted to highlight since I can't go through all the host plants. I'd like to. We'll start with the American Lady on Pearly Everlasting. Pearly Everlasting grows in, I mean, pretty much anywhere. Fields, I have some growing just alongside my old barn. Um, you'll find these caterpillars also are kind of like a congregation of caterpillars on the plants. Eastern black swallowtail grows on golden Alexander, Zizia. You can also find it on dill, with carrot family. American coppers on docks and sorrels. I don't think there's a whole lot of native. I think there's like two native dock species in Vermont. I'd have to double check that, but they'll eat it. I guess regardless. Baltimore checker spot on white turtlehead. Those are a really cool caterpillar. In this picture here, you can see that had just molted. So that little black shiny thing underneath the caterpillar, that's the head capsule, kind of cool. And then Milbert's tortoiseshell, I want to bring attention to there at the top. Taking a quick look at the raw data from our atlas 20 years ago and comparing it to what we have so far in this atlas, it appears that their population may have declined by nearly 75%, which is not good, right? So just something to think about when we think about caterpillars, especially these guys. Again, there's a lot of caterpillars on one plant. It looks like, wow, there must be tons of caterpillars, tons of Milbert tortoiseshell. But you have to remember that a lot of these caterpillars, not many of them actually survive. They get eaten, they die from disease, they don't get enough food. So here's your sign to, if you plant nettles or if you see nettles, leave them, check them out, see if there's any caterpillars on them. They eat primarily nettles. They're also reported to eat willows and elms and possibly sunflower, but nettles is their primary host plant. And nettles also host some commas and red admiral as well as some moss species. And now moving on quickly to woody host plants. Yes, this is not a butterfly caterpillar. This is a moth caterpillar. This is the Cecropia moth. It's one of our biggest silk moths in the state. I just want to reiterate that while you're looking for butterflies, you're going to probably find a lot more moth caterpillars than you will butterfly caterpillars, and that's totally fine. Moth caterpillars are a lot of fun. Some are really unassuming, maybe just small and green, and others are really amazing creatures like this one here. So just a reminder that all of these caterpillars can coexist on the same plants together. This is just how they evolved. So trees and shrubs make great host plants. They're also able to accommodate many more insects than a single herbaceous plant can. Cecropias here can be found on cherry, willow, apple, and maple, and some of these trees are also host plants for butterfly species as well. So oaks. Oaks are a keystone species. They are a moth and butterfly powerhouse. They support over 400 moth and butterfly species in just the Northeast alone. We have 6 species of oaks native to Vermont and New Hampshire. And here's a couple of the butterfly species that you can find on oak trees. Down at the bottom, you see the early hair streak, the S2, so that's the imperiled ranking. Trees can be really difficult to find butterflies on when they're big because you can't get up into the leaves as well. If you have lower hanging boughs or even smaller sapling type trees, you'll find a lot of caterpillars on saplings. So those are always good places to start, especially if you find like old lots and things where you've got some of those newer saplings just kind of growing up everywhere. Perfect caterpillar habitat, so take a look. Next host plant is birch. About 7 species of birch in Vermont and New Hampshire. Depending on the species, they grow in all different habitats, and they support over 300 species of moths and butterflies. And here are some of the caterpillars that birch hosts. You can see the Canadian tiger swallowtail, the little Pokemon looking guy there at the upper left. We have a morning cloak, the eastern comma, and even a skipper, the Jamie Dusky wing. Also, they support commas and the Compton's tortoiseshell. And I didn't want to leave out these two host plants, especially because not only do they support a lot of Lepidoptera species, but they are also really important pollinator plants, especially for bees. So cherry trees, especially black cherry, they host over 400 species of moths and butterflies, and they are super important for bees. And willow hosts over 300 species of moths and butterflies, and also, again, very important for especially early flying bees. And there are even some specialist bees for the willow. So if you have willows, you're pretty lucky. And then coming near the end here, I just want to highlight some of the species that are at risk in Vermont. So you'll see in the upper left the S rankings, just to give you a reminder. So here are just some of the species. The common sooty wing is an S1 that's critically imperiled. The tawny emperor and the hackberry emperor, again, critically imperiled to imperiled. These two species are obligates of hackberry, the genus hackberry. They really don't eat much else. So if we don't have hackberry, we don't have these two butterfly species. So something to keep in mind. Spice bush swallowtail, that's a mouthful. Critically imperiled species, primarily eats spice bush. I believe there are a few other documented things that it can eat. And then the hickory hair streak, S3, so considered vulnerable. And this also primarily eats hickory trees, but has some documented other host plants. And finally, so if we're creating, we want to create and maintain habitat for our butterfly species and other insect species, really. This is kind of across the board. These tips will help all insect species. First and foremost, you want to remove invasives. In the case of butterflies, species like black or pale swallowwort can act as ecological traps for monarch butterflies. The monarchs will lay their eggs on the plant because the swallowwort is really similar to milkweed. I believe it's in the same family of plants, but the caterpillars can't eat it. It's actually toxic to them. They will not survive on it. So removing invasives, whether it's black swallowwort, burning bush, butterfly bush, things that just grow out of control, take up space that other native plants could use, or actually kill these critters when they eat it. Good things to get rid of. And then in their place, encourage or plant native plants. So a lot of yards, if you stop mowing an area, you might start to see things start popping up like asters, goldenrods. I tried that at my house. Now my entire front yard is goldenrod. It may look a little unkempt to people, but I think it's beautiful in the fall. And I'm supporting tons of pollinators and tons of caterpillars. When you do encourage or plant plants, just make sure that you have a variety of different species of plants, different colors, different flower shapes, and then a variety of, woody and herbaceous. You want to just have a variety so that it covers everybody and all of their life cycles. And you don't want to use pesticides and herbicides. Chemical and essential oil pesticides, they don't discriminate. They may be labeled for one thing, but something that kills one thing generally kills a lot of others. And a lot of times these can persist in the environment for a long time, so it will just kill anything that comes in contact with it. Provide layers and structure. So you can see in this picture, leaves, understory plants, shrubs, and then trees. All this structure gives pollinators and other insects a chance to hide, complete their life cycle, overwinter, providing the overwinter habitat. So we call it soft landings. I believe there should be some information on that in our resources as well. Having leaves, uncompacted ground, some trees, brush piles, and log piles. Any places that insects can nestle into for the winter and stay safe from predators and from the elements. And by doing these things, we can support insects through their entire life cycle. And then remember, when you find caterpillars and they're eating your plants, congratulations, let them eat. So caterpillars and other insects munching on your plants means you're doing it right. And the plants and the insects have co-evolved together to eat and be eaten. So just let nature take its course. And finally, you can help us here at VCE learn about pollinators in our state and pollinators beyond by contributing to not only the Vermont Butterfly Atlas, but the Pollinator Interactions on Plants project on iNaturalist. So these are two of the projects here with the QR codes. There's also going to be links in the resources. And there are a lot of other opportunities for events and community science involvement on our website. So please check our website out for more information and for opportunities to get involved. And that's it. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble and bumble. I hope you really enjoyed this.
Yeah, and so Amber, we had a couple of questions in the chat, or one primarily. Tracy and Vic asked, does Serviceberry, all the different serviceberries, host any butterfly caterpillars? I know it has some moths on it.
That's a good question, and honestly, I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to look that up. But yeah, is just a great plant for early pollinators again. But as far as caterpillars go, I'm not certain.
Yeah, I realized that I'd left my helpful Jeffrey Glassberg book at home today.
Mine's at work and I'm at home,
so
Oh,
I could have grabbed yours.
yeah.
Kevin also had an interesting point about highway crews being like encouraging mowing practices that encourage little boo stem. Do you know anything about if the Vermont Department of Transportation does any like butterfly conservation work type stuff?
This is interesting. I remember Kent talking about this, and I think what happened was initially there was a plan for that, and I'm not sure, how management changes and things. I'm not sure that it ever completely got followed through with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting, like being able to bring in those other kind of Vermont departments into conservation work, especially because a lot of our butterflies and a lot of our species seem to be spreading along I-91 in particular.
Yep.
Yeah, so if anybody else has any questions for Amber, feel free to drop them in the chat, or now is the time that you can unmute and feel free to ask questions.
I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Hi, my name is Melissa. Thank you very much for that presentation. I just have a question on, I know butterflies and moths have caterpillars, but other insects make caterpillars, right? They have caterpillar as part of their process. 2 years ago, I planted a large amount of dogwood shrubs, red and gray stem. And last fall, I was inundated with, I think they were probably the Asian lady beetle. They looked like they were caterpillars. I'd never seen anything like it in my life, and they were covered with it. Are those likely the Asian lady beetle caterpillars, or was it a ladybugs?
So the lady beetles and Asian lady beetles are in the same. They're all lady beetles. So we don't call them caterpillars. We just call them larvae. So you may have been seeing, or pupa actually, you may have been seeing lady beetle pupa. But you also may have been seeing, and I'm not sure what they looked like on your tree. Dogwood is also known for sawfly larvae. And those look much more similar to caterpillars than the lady beetle pupa would. They're a little longer. They're pretty fancy looking, and they're actually really cool. They're much similar to caterpillars, and that may have been what you were seeing.
They were pretty fancy, I'll tell you that. I've never seen it like it. I did bring it to the local Agway Pictures, and he suggested it was ladybugs, lady beetles.
Okay. Well, keep that in mind for this year. I always look my dogwoods for them just because I really enjoy sawfly larvae.
Yeah, thank you. I'll check it out. Thank you very much.
I'm dropping a couple of examples of those other kind of caterpillar-like
Oh,
things. So
good.
there's some Asian lady beetles, and then I'm going to drop the sawfly in a second. So Ken's got a question. What caterpillars like maples, especially things like sugar maples?
Mm, always off the top of my head. So I'm trying to think, what did I have? The Cropia. Oh, I'm no, I'm thinking of moths. So butterflies, off the top of my head, honestly, I'm not sure. I can certainly look that up. Um, I think, yeah, I would have to look that one up.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head either. Terry
Yeah,
or Kevin, you might know, maybe.
maybe not.
Guess that's a no. Um, yeah, if there's any other questions, we'll give it another minute or so. All right, Kevin says no butterflies that he knows of. So
Yeah.
I wonder why. It's a good question. Chemically.
Mm.
All right, so while we're waiting, feel free to ask more questions if they come up, but in between that, I will say, so we're going to send out a list of resources that go along with Amber's talk. Those will come out in a follow-up email probably tomorrow, along with the recording from this webinar. I also wanted to mention our next webinar is on Earth Day, April 22nd. It's also going to be at noon, again with Amber, to learn more about kind of the other side of butterfly eating when they're adults. So looking at nectaring plants for butterflies. Remember, if you register, that the Zoom link is going to be sent out the morning before the event, so you don't need to register multiple times. The event will also be recorded, so if you can't make it, make sure that you're registered so you can still receive the link to that recording. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to those events that are coming up. I'll also say, so the butterfly blitzes, which Terry mentioned at the beginning of this talk, are going to be kind of like a bio blitz. We're going to meet at different points throughout the summer across Vermont. We're going to all get together at a central location, split up into teams, and go butterflying together. Those dates are up and locations are up on that event site as well, but we don't have registration open yet, so we'll keep an eye out for that for when we start opening registration.
Melissa here, one other question. When are the caterpillars most abundant?
So I don't know if it's most abundant, but you're going to have an easier time finding them because they're bigger, kind of towards mid to late summer. That's like a really prime time to find some chunky caterpillars.
Oh, I had one other thing that I wanted to mention about caterpillars. So hopefully this talk has inspired you to be excited about looking for caterpillars this summer as well. I did want to say that caterpillars do count towards the Butterfly Atlas, so you can submit those on either iNaturalist or on eButterfly, and those will count. So if you're looking for a challenge, add some caterpillars to your counts. All right. I think we will wrap up for today. Thank you again all for coming out. We'll send this around and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks on Earth Day.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.